events that can be constituted as cyberwar events in Israel. They happened during Cast-led and the Second Lebanon War. All right. Again, Google it. It's not that difficult if you're kind of weak on Middle East history. I don't blame you. One of the interesting incidents is that the Palestinian TV was hacked as propaganda. All right. So you just hack the TV and broadcast whatever shit you want. Love Israel and stuff like that. Run for your houses. Your leaders don't like you. Whatever you want to say there. Easy. Everyone's got a TV these days, even the guys in Gaza. Another event, which is much more interesting, is this. Can anyone knows what this is? What? Syria. All right. This was my birthday present, September 6th. All right, remember, you want to send me some stuff. 2007, this came out. This is a Syrian nuclear facility. All right, and this is how it looked like on December 6, 2007. Operation called Operation ARHack. Again, look it up. The link to the Wikipedia article is here. This stuff blew up. Allegedly by Israeli Air Force bombers. Now, if you know your geography a little bit, you know that to get from Israel to Syria, you got to pass another country or two. I'm saying allegedly because none of those countries in the middle, namely Lebanon and Turkey, have any recollection or any evidence on their radars that there was any Israeli aircraft passing by. All right, so this just blew up out of thin air. Again, Google it. There's a lot of funny stories about it. The Syrian reaction initially was it didn't happen. And there's an actual picture missing here. I need to find it and update this, where they actually bulldozed that area and just wiped out any evidence that there was any building there. Kind of like saying, what building? It didn't blow up. So yeah, it was kind of awkward because, again, you need to get planes from here to here, but there's no evidence that this happened. So again, obviously, there was, on top of the kinetic, and there's a kinetic effect here. On top of the kinetic effort, there was some kind of electronic cyber something effort that affected two different countries. Okay? So yeah, stuff happens. Let's talk about more Cast-led and Second Lebanon War. If you look at all the events that happened throughout that period, all the attacks on both Israeli and Arabic targets are attributed to hacktivists. Okay? Surprisingly enough, those attacks mostly happened in conjunction with kinetic attacks. All right? In like a fairly well synchronized manner. One of my favorites is this. This was a website that promoted pro-Israelis to download software that will be used to DDoS different targets. So yeah, who needs Zeus when you can just tell people to download this stuff? Let's talk about another organization in this whole scheme of things. ARHack. It's a hacker forum by day, cybercrime operations by night. All right? It's a very popular Arabic-speaking forum, okay, that have this. Wow, you can't really see this. There's like political posts, anti-Israel, pro-Gaza, pro-whatever it is. I'm not going to get into politics. That goes around on the hacktivist side that looks very kind of, from the trenches. On the other hand, they're buying and selling cards for half their balance, all right, and selling 1,600 Visa cards, in bulk. So it's kind of a dual hat thing going on. On one hand, it's a proper crime organization, very organized, all the stuff that we've talked about in the past years. On the other hand, it's kind of hacktivism. Let's talk about politics and stuff like that. So again, connecting the dots is not that difficult over there. Georgia, off from Israel to a little northwest. This was, from my perspective, the most interesting incident or case that you can analyze from a cyberwar, cybercrime perspective. It is the most interesting because it had the most synchronized kinetic and cyber attacks in a campaign. The targets were mostly civilian, all right, mostly media outlets and like general public websites, the president's website and stuff like that. And all the attacks were launched from civilian networks. It's not like, you know, Kremlin.ru was the source for all those command control communications or the actual attacks. Now, in order to talk about Georgia and the Georgia-Russia conflict, you have to talk about Russia first. Wow, I'm losing like half my slides here. There's a big dilemma in Russia. The dilemma revolves around the connection between criminal organizations and state or government. If any of those names make sense to you, you know what I'm talking about. All right? These are all companies, like legitimate companies, that are Russia-based or Russia-connected that have a very, very strong affinity to criminal outlets and to criminal activities. Obviously, RBN, Trivio, EST Domains, Mikolo. Everyone remember Mikolo from last year? All right. These all have connections back into the Russian government and the Russian politicians that basically allow these things to keep running. Let's map out just a few of those connections. Again, this is like an offhand, quick connection. I'm sure there's more, but just to understand things. HostFresh and the UKR telegroup are hosted by Trivio, which is a customer of EST Domains, which is a customer of RBN, the Russian business network. If you remember the Russian business network, it went down in 2008. When it went down, it was moved to China, HostFresh. Then it came back up to Russia and kept running because, again, there's no one to stop it there. It's not like people got sued or fined. RBN's network providers are also UKR Telegroup and HostFresh. All right? Very highly connected. When you talk about EST Domains and Mikolo, you know these guys are actually bad guys. All right? There's no doubt about it. There's enough proof to say they have criminal affinity. If you talk about RBN, you know they're highly connected to the Russian government. If you talk about Mikolo, you know that the guy that committed suicide was, you know, like a cousin of some Politburo in Russia that allowed this whole thing to actually run. So you get my point. So back to the actual attack in Georgia. This is what started the cyber aspect of it. All right, you start seeing commands issued from the standard CNC servers, basically saying flood, you know, president.gov.ge over HTTP, UDP, and TCP, HTTP, TCP, and ICMP. The CNCs were shut down and then brought up again, and the second attack started as troops started crossing the border towards Georgia. All right, again, very, very highly synchronized kinetic and cyber attacks. Now, the interesting thing about those command and control servers is that they were, again, they were used to attack all those media outlets on the president's website and Kasparov's website because there's a thing in Russia because Kasparov was Georgian and they don't like him. So they're like, yeah, add Kasparov to the thing. At the same time, the same command and control servers were still operating business as usual, and business in cybercrime is making money. So they're still, you know, attacking porn sites to extort them, adult escort services, Nazi and racist sites, Carter forums, gambling sites, you know, the usual dealing and scheming of cybercrime. Connecting the dots, not that difficult, I think. All right, and the facts are all out there. Iran, I've got 10 minutes, so I'm going to blow through this. You know Twitter? Anyone doesn't know Twitter? Good, all right. Great crowd. 2009, Twitter went down, DNS hacked. The political connections of that specific attack are just too obvious to ignore. It was the elections in Iran. right around the UN Council decisions to ban Iran and do bad stuff to them, and protests against the leadership in Tehran. This is what the attack looked like, all right? Again, I hate those slides. This is what Twitter looked like when you try to access it during the attack. If you try to Google it, you'll get that, this Arabic speaking or Farsi speaking page. Basically saying, this is the Iranian cyber army. We protest this and we don't like you, and Twitter's down, so get your 140 characters somewhere else. This was taken down, this thing happened on December 18th, 2009. All right? And again, the attack was attributed to the Iranian cyber army. Until December 2009, by the way, if you were following those kind of intelligence forums and stuff like that, there was no Iranian cyber army. All right? This is like a new thing that happened just for Twitter. But if you, again, closely look at the affiliations between the groups, you realize that the Iranian cyber army is actually part of a group called ARHack. It's a Shiite group of, again, hackers and activists and stuff like that running inside Iran. And ARHack's, kind of defacement logo and technologies and techniques are very, 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 very similar to what we've seen in the Iranian cyber army back on Twitter. All right. Again, this is from attrition. You can see the actual defacements, and they use the actual same HTML template to push onto the defaced sites. And again, just check out the forum, get someone who speaks Farsi or Arabic, and you can see how it operates. To make things a little easier, this is a pic from the Iranian cyber army subgroup inside the ARHack forums. They have a section called War Games. I shit you not. And in those war games, you can see the post from like one of the trainers or whatever you want to call them, leaders, saying, all right, the war game target for this week, month, whatever it is this website. They have rules of engagement, scoring. It's kind of like capture the flag, but for real. Yeah. And the targets of that capture the flag is not some, here's a VM image, you need to protect it or attack it. Chester County Natural Gas Authority, all right, out of South Carolina somewhere. This is a target practice, okay? You can't make this shit up. It's in the forums. Go see. And the target changes every time there's a new war game. So these guys are actually practicing on critical infrastructure or Chester County, just infrastructure targets as a practice for the actual, D-Day when things are going to really happen. Now, let's take a look another quick look at the 18th. What other big thing happened on December 18th? Can anyone point out like a big event? No? Oh, seriously. The same day that Twitter went down, everyone was so fucking busy complaining that they can't tweet from the restroom or whatever it is, that the Iranians seized an Iraqi oil well across the border. Okay? No one remembers this? Come on, it's ground troops moving the border, crossing the border. It's ours now. And no one notices this. Why? Because Twitter's down and everyone's busy trying to get Twitter back up. Coincidence? I don't know. Maybe. I don't think so. Baidu, again, another incident between Iran and China this time. A little more recent than this 2009 thing. Again, same thing. Look at what happened around the time when Baidu was taken down. So let's sum things up a little bit on the Iranian kind of cybercrime connections. ARHack group, their usual kind of MO is DDoS, site defacements, credit cards, botnet herding, the usual stuff. Iranian cyber army is a subgroup running inside ARHack, doing strategic attacks and war games and training on critical targets or interesting targets in the US and China. Okay? The line differentiating between cybercrime and cyberwar, not that clear anymore. All right, connecting the dots.